Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! It was another day at our electronics store. I'm the assistant manager, and let me tell you, I thought I'd seen it all in retail, but this day was about to throw us a curveball that none of us saw coming. It was around 10 a.m. when he walked in, a tall guy, dressed in a fancy suit like he was off to some high-profile meeting. He made a beeline for the most expensive laptops we had and started examining them with an air of expertise. I've dealt with all kinds of customers, but something about this guy set off alarm bells in my head. "Can I help you find something specific, sir?" I asked, approaching him cautiously. He flashed a smile. "Yes, I'm looking for a high-end laptop, something top of the line. Money is no object." Now, in retail, you hear money is no object quite a bit, but rarely does it mean anything. This guy, though, he seemed like he meant it. So I started showing him our best models. After about an hour of back and forth, he picked out not one, but 5 of our most expensive laptops. I was stunned. That's easily over $15,000 in merchandise. As I started the paperwork, he casually mentioned that he would be paying with a check. "A check?" I repeated, surprised. We rarely dealt with checks for such large amounts. "Yes, I find it more convenient for big purchases," he said smoothly. Something didn't feel right. I excused myself and went to find our general manager, Sarah. I explained the situation to her. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "A check? Huh? Let's do some quick verification before we proceed." Sarah came out to meet the customer. He handed over his check with a confident smile. Sarah examined it and then politely asked for some ID. He handed over his driver's license. We went to the back office to verify the details, and the check seemed legit. But when Sarah called the bank, we discovered that the account had been flagged for suspicious activity. Red flag number 1. Then Sarah looked closer at the driver's license. Something was off about the photo. He pulled up an online database and found that the ID number belonged to someone else. Red flag number 2. We went back out to confront our guy. "Sir, there's a problem with your check and ID. We need to clarify a few things," Sarah said firmly. His confidence faltered for a moment, but then he regained his composure. "I assure you there must be some mistake. Everything is in order." But Sarah wasn't having it. "I'm sorry, but we can't process this transaction. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." And that's when things escalated. He started yelling, claiming we were accusing him wrongly and threatening to sue the store. I was about to call security when he suddenly changed his tone. Okay, I'll leave." But Sarah ended up dialing 911. The police arrived within minutes. They listened to our story, checked the evidence, and then handcuffed the guy. The police later told us that this person was part of a larger fraud ring. Our store could have been a major hit for them. The aftermath of the incident was a whirlwind of paperwork and statements, but Sarah and I were rewarded. Our store implemented stricter policies for large transactions, especially involving checks. This story is from roughly 2013. I was an adjuster for Lizard Insurance. I would go to many tow lots after car accidents and decide if a car was a total loss or send it to a body shop, as well as do the initial write-up for an estimate on repair costs. The tow lot I was at this day also worked with the state police and housed their overflow storage for anything deemed evidence and on hold from release. These vehicles were kept behind a locked gate inside the already fenced gated tow yard. I was there to do an appraisal on 2 vehicles that had been involved in a major accident. However, both were left unable to drive from the scene due to either multiple flats, lights knocked out, or windows busted. I've finished the first vehicle and I've started taking photos of the second one. I have headphones in and I'm listening to the album Cavalcade by the Flatliners. Anyhow, I see a woman, I guess around 50, walk up to the police evidence lot and the gate swings open out of the corner of my eye. Not paying much attention as the vehicles I was working with were on the same side of the lot but about 50 meters down from the evidence lot. As my back is turned to this woman, I will, from here on, refer to her as Karen. I take the last couple of photos I need. The last being a photograph of the VIN of the vehicle, which is located where the windshield meets the hood, almost on a dash through the windscreen. Hope this makes sense. Karen, out of literally nowhere, grabs both cables to my headphones from behind and rips them out of my ear. Excuse me, why there are 2 cars in front of mine so I cannot get it out? This lot would stack cars in 4 or 5 deep side by side and move them around with a small truck to release them. Please don't touch me, and I don't think you should be in here. You shouldn't be listening to music on a job anyway, or slacking off taking pictures of other people's belongings. You're probably back here stealing. I attempt to point at the Lizard Insurance logo on my blue jacket, but Karen continues on. Are you going to do your job, or do I need to call the police because you're refusing to give me my property? Have you gone into the office at ABC Towing? No, I saw you here and you need to move these cars so I can get mine and leave. As Karen opens the door and gets into the first car and no one's blocking her, hey, no, you can't go in there, that's police evidence. I use my cell phone to call ABC Towing and inform them. If you won't move these cars, then I will. Where are the keys? In my office with the employees. At this time, the manager comes running out with one of those weird smartphone/Nextel style phones in his hand. Hey lady, get the hell out of there. Those cars are property of the state police. The manager frantically uses his Nextel to talk to someone. He sees a chain used to keep the lock closed has been cut with bolt cutters, y'all. Karen was carrying a pair of bolt cutters and had thrown them into her car when she was back at it. The manager and Karen argue back and forth, and I intently listen and have paid attention as I finish my duties for work. About 8 to 10 minutes pass and 7 police cars come flying back into the lot. The manager greets the police and explains what is going on, but not after Karen attempts to scream at the police that I had stolen her car. The police tell Karen to stand over in the direction he points, sending one officer to wait with her. Turns out the lieutenant was on scene, who was in charge of the county's police tow licenses. After getting the manager's story, the lieutenant comes to me and takes mine. While I'm informing him of what happened, Karen overhears and starts yelling and attempting to approach me. The officer standing with her grabbed her by her arm. Karen yanked that arm out of the female officer's hand and shoved her, surprisingly knocking the officer down. Karen is screaming incoherently as she charges toward me. The lieutenant steps in front of me and with his taser hits Karen with the most beautiful sound in the world. Karen goes limp and her face gets planted in the dirt/light gravel of the lot and skids slightly. They immediately handcuff her. Turns out Karen had walked onto the lot carrying the bolt cutters while I was in the office talking with staff about the 2 cars I needed to adjust. She had been roaming the lot until she saw me and I happened to be near her car. Karen was charged with burglary, 2 counts of tampering with evidence, assault on a police officer, assault on me, trespassing, and resisting arrest. I know Karen did jail time, but I'm not sure how much. Years later, the tow company I now own impounded her car for being double parked. She remembered who I was and quietly paid. I am 30, male, and my wife, 29, female, gave birth to our first son, 5 days, male, recently. I would like to start by saying that I was very excited to have a baby, and I'm truly looking forward to being a father. My wife did not have any health complications or a particularly difficult birth, except for an ultra-long labor, like 27 hours total. She slept through a lot of it in the beginning, but as it got progressively worse, she started to get more uncomfortable. Since we had been in the room for a very long time, I had started to get antsy. We both played on a Nintendo in the beginning, but she didn't want to anymore as the labor progressed. About 23 hours in, I started to play online chess on my phone as I held her hand through her contractions. She was fine with it at first, but then she snapped at me and told me to put my phone away. So I did that. Then she told me off for bouncing my leg and then for drumming my fingers on the bed. I told her to stop yelling at me and to tell me exactly what she wanted me to do, which was apparently the wrong thing to say because she told me to leave and send her father in instead. This really pissed me off, and I told her that I was not going to miss the birth of my child. She said she'd call me back when it was time, but I really needed to leave as I was getting on her last nerve. I went out where her parents were waiting and told her dad to go in. I was pretty upset because I wanted to be there to take care of her. Her mother tried to make me feel better, saying that it was a vulnerable time and different women needed different things. We were called in when she was finally given birth. I caught the baby while her parents comforted her, just like we had planned. Everything seemed okay again, till her parents left and she asked if I was going to apologize. I told her that I didn't think I needed to, and that if anyone owed me an apology, it was her. She has been annoyed ever since and is not properly talking to me. So Reddit, am I the jerk here? Should I simply apologize? And now with some comments on a post. Quote, she didn't have a difficult birth, except for 27 hours of labor. Oh, is that all? The woman was an entire day into her labor, and you think she owes you an apology? Even if you don't think you need to apologize, just apologize. You're the jerk. Another commenter adds, you are the jerk, and you owe her the apology. You got upset because she wanted you to leave. You're already mentally checked out to play video games. When we women go into labor, there are contractions that are very painful. She can't say okay, no more contractions for a while because she wants a break. And having to go through this for 27 freaking hours is a lot for everyone. 27 hours of labor where her body is contracting to move a 6-pound or more human out of her body, on top of extreme pain of pushing the baby out. Meanwhile, you play on your freaking phone, then jiggle around, tapping finger. In my guess, more of being a big pain in the butt, irritating the heck out of her because she wasn't accommodating you, but just walking into the hospital and just take a deep breath and plop that baby out so you can catch the baby. And if I'm not clear, you are the jerk. If your wife reads this, he really should do 2 hours of the labor simulator, just so he can have an idea of what you went through. And if you're dumb enough to think it was nothing, give him the full 27 hours. A third commenter goes with, you're the jerk. She was in labor and in pain. The least you could have done is put your phone away and support her. She gave up on you and sent you out of the room and called in her father for support. Then you had the absolute nerve to be upset that she wanted someone in a room to support her? You should have stopped the phone and stopped fidgeting like a toddler when she needed your support. If you have done that, she never would have sent you away to begin with. You need to apologize big time. She had to give birth. The least you could have done was to be there for her and not play with your phone or tap your leg, making her even more uneasy. Note from OP, I wasn't bored. I have ADHD and I was anxious. You know, I never really saw myself as a type who'd go tangled up in neighborhood drama. I'm Jake, by the way, a pretty average guy with a fondness for peace and quiet. That was until Karen moved in across the street. The first few weeks were uneventful, but it didn't take long for her true colors to show. It started with small complaints. Karen didn't like the way Mr. Henderson parked his car. She thought Mrs. Lee's garden was an eyesore, but things escalated quickly from there. I remember one Saturday morning distinctly. The sun was just peeping over the horizon and I was enjoying my coffee when the shouting began. I stepped outside to see Karen, red-faced, screaming at Mr. Henderson about his car blocking part of the sidewalk. Mr. Henderson, a mild-mannered retiree, was trying to reason with her, but Karen was having none of it. "Your car is a hazard," Karen screeched. "I could have tripped over it on my morning walk." "Karen, it's barely over the line," Mr. Henderson replied calmly. "I'll move it, but you don't need to yell." And that's when I decided to step in. "Hey, let's all calm down. Mr. Henderson is moving his car. Problem solved, right?" "Big mistake." Karen turned her fury towards me. "And who asked you? You're always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." I was taken aback but managed to say, Just trying to keep the peace, Karen. Over the next few weeks, Karen's tirade became a regular occurrence. She complained about everything and everyone. I tried to stay out of it, but it was getting out of hand. Neighbors started avoiding each other and there was this constant tension in the air. Then came the incident with the Johnson's dog. The Johnsons had a sweet Labrador, Max, who occasionally barked at squirrels. Karen decided Max was a nuisance. One evening, as I was doing some yard work, I heard Karen yelling. Rushing over, I found her confronting Mrs. Johnson. "Your dog is a menace. I demand you do something about it." Karen was practically frothing at the mouse. Mrs. Johnson, holding Max's leash, tightly replied, "Karen, he's just a dog. He barks sometimes, but he's harmless." I stepped in. "Karen, maybe we can find a solution that works for everyone?" But Karen turned to me, her eyes blazing. You're always middling. I'm sick of it." Before I could react, she lunged at me, clawing and screaming. I was in shock. Mrs. Johnson was yelping for help. It was pure chaos. Luckily, another neighbor had called the police when the shouting started. When they arrived, Karen was still in a frenzy. It took 2 officers to pull her away from me. As they handcuffed her, she was still yelling, accusing me of attacking her. But the other neighbors, including Mr. Henderson and Mrs. Johnson, spoke up. They told the police everything, how I was just trying to mediate and how Karen had lost it. Karen was arrested for assault, and the neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. Turns out she had a history of similar incidents in her previous neighborhood. In the aftermath, our little community grew closer, we started having regular get-togethers, and the tension that Karen had brought dissipated.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.